All right, good morning and welcome to today's lecture on project management, BIS 510. Today's lecture, we'll be looking at an introductory aspect of project management. And our focus would be to try and understand what we mean by project management, the characteristics of project management, the project management life cycle. And in the second part, we'll be looking at project management and strategy, where we'll be interested in how culture influences strategy and project management in the organization. Specifically, in this lecture, we're interested in trying to understand why project management is becoming such an important and a powerful practice in business. One thing I must emphasize is that in this course, when we say project management, our focus is on IT project management. Though the principles we are going to use would apply largely to all other kinds of projects, but our focus is on IT project management. Many a time, some of us may have seen adverts in the newspapers online about professional project management courses, to the extent that sometimes people assume that even if you don't have a degree and you have a project management certificate or you are a professional in that, you would be able to pursue a career in project management. And because of that assumption, I always wonder why someone will go and do a master's in project management, because I consider project management to be a very narrow field, though it affects almost all aspects of an organization. We would also be interested in the basic properties of projects, including what we mean by project. And this is where our class needs to be very interactive, because all of us have been engaged in some kind of project before, either in our current organizations or in previous organizations. We are also interested in understanding why effective project management is a challenge. Why is it a challenge? It can be a challenge because of culture. It can be a challenge because of the nature of the product. It can be a challenge because of the nature of our budget. It can be a challenge because of the nature of the organizational structure. So we'll look at a lot of these dynamics. Then we'll consider what we mean by the project lifecycle, the different stages in it, and how each will typically occur during the a project the termination of a project. We'll also be interested in understanding what we mean by benchmarking. We'll also be interested in trying to understand what we mean by project management maturity model. How can we ensure that when a project starts at the initial stages, at the time it gets to the period of execution and finally termination, what practices can we benchmark within our own organization? What practices can we benchmark the project against to say that the project is doing well or not? Apart from benchmarking project success or project delivery within the organization existing or past projects, we can also benchmark with other projects in other organizations or industry. Then we would understand the purpose of project management. Yeah, I think I've mentioned this. So to start off, I want to find out from you guys what we mean by a project. And to give you an idea of how to easily understand what we mean by a project, I want us to take our minds back to what we mean by a business process. We indicated that a business process basically looks at a number of activities done in some orderly manner. The processes are usually what? Similar. And that is why we often use the word, the processes are routine. So if you are the head of stores and you know that every day when you go into stores or you get to the office, these are the processes that needs to be followed if an item is going to be delivered or taken out of stores to the production floor. In that case, that will be a list of processes. Using this idea and considering it in opposition to what we mean by a project and your past experiences or past involvement in projects, how would you describe a project to be? Using what we mean by a process as a benchmark. What is a project? I'll give you an example. What I'm currently doing every day, if we are going to meet in this class, I'm going to sit here, project, lecture, you ask questions. That is a process. But before you started this particular program, we made sure that we developed a program. Remember that after the development of the program and the program being accredited, we will not go back to the process of developing a program and getting it accredited again. But sitting here teaching, tomorrow if you come, I'm going to go through the same processes. What I'm going through are a series of processes. It's a process. But our initiative to develop and accredit a program was a project. So if you look at it carefully, one is a one-time activity geared towards one specific objective. That specific objective in order to achieve it, we are also making sure that we meet a client's need. And in this case, our clients were who? Potential students, to make sure that it meets them. Based on that, what can we say? How can we describe a project? I think I have just done that, but I want to hear from you.
I would like to try.
Yes, go ahead.
A project can be explained or defined as activities that has the characteristics of the project lifecycle.
Okay. Okay. So with your explanation, if I don't know the characteristics or the components of the project lifecycle, I will be in limbo. Any other? So we'll come to that. We'll come back to that. Yes. What's a project?
In my opinion, a project is a temporal endeavor.
Okay.
That is set aside to achieve a specific aims and goals.
So, yeah, so if you look at his explanation, it means that projects are non-traditional. When I say they are non-traditional, what I'm doing is traditional. What we are doing, everyday lecture. But a project should be seen as a one-time thing, temporary, with a specific objective. The moment that an objective is achieved, the project does what? It ceases to exist. But these processes will never end. As long as we continue to run the program, it means that lecturers will have to, students will have to sit together and go through the same process. So it's not a one-time, it's a continuous. One other critical thing about projects, the project is, yes.
Series of interconnected activities.
Okay.
That's for a particular, to fulfill a particular objective.
Okay.
Within the specified period.
Okay. I like the last part, specified period of time. But series of makes it look more of what?
It's
a process. Okay, yes.
So we're going to like short-term goals.
Okay, temporary, short-term. Yeah.
Carried out to achieve another.
Yeah, to achieve.
Another objective.
Yeah, is the objective broad for a project? The objectives are what? A project has a specific target. So the objectives are not broad in essence. Yes. Yeah.
The example you gave about this program.
Okay.
The accreditation processes was a project.
Okay.
And a whole business
activity.
So
but if you look at the MBA MIS, for instance, that was a project. The bigger project was development of programs, but each program was tailored towards a specific objectives. You are all right to some extent. Let's look at some characteristics. Yes. Yeah, projects are always planned. Yes. Let's look at some of these. Projects are complex, one-time processes. What makes a project complex? Projects are complex because they draw on cross-functional rules. When we say cross-functional rules, when we are putting a project, we remember that I use the word non-traditional. Traditionally, an organization is seen in the triangular form. Those are the top, those are the middle, and those are the bottom. And there's a clearly defined chain of what? Command, control, clearly defined. But if a project is going to be executed, the expertise that is needed for the execution of the project may be cross-functional. We need somebody from sales, somebody from accounts, somebody from production. So it means that using the normal flow of command or chain of command, the chain of command in the project will be different. For instance, if you put a project team together, there may be somebody in charge of that particular project. That person has specific rules and responsibilities different from the manager this guy is responsible to. So you see that in a normal organizational structure, there are clearly defined rules. But when we also put a project together, the project will have a what? A head. And the traditional chains of command that exist traditionally in the organization may not necessarily apply in the project. True or false? That is why we're saying that, because we are going to draw expertise from several different components or departments or units in the organization, it makes a project what? A very, very complex endeavor. We also want to emphasize that projects are limited by budget. We just want to achieve a particular objective. So cost-wise, some amount of money should be assigned to it. So the budget is limited, unlike the bigger organizational objectives. All the resources of the organization are geared towards achieving that particular objective. The time frame we indicated here in the first part that it is a one-time thing. So it means the time frame, the schedule, the resources we are dedicating to it are also very, very limited. What happens, given the fact that we are saying projects are limited by budget, by money, in terms of cost, in terms of schedule timing, there's also a predefined time. If it's going to be done in 1 month, it should be done within 1 month. The resources, labor, and other things should also be clearly defined. What happens? Is it always the case that the project will be executed within the limited budget? Is it always the case that the project will be delivered within the limited schedule? Is it also the case that the project will be delivered within or given the limited resources we have? Oftentimes, many projects exceed the time, the cost, and many other components. So technically, we say that there is a project. You will often hear the term that there is a project overrun. Or sometimes they will say runaway projects. Have you heard this term? If a project is a runaway, it means it is exceeding almost all the limited components that are assigned to the project. In terms of labor, if the labor components that was budgeted for the project, now we need 2 additional hands, 1 additional hand, it means that there's a runaway cost there in terms of labor. In terms of other components, direct materials and other things, we may also experience runaway cost. We also just mentioned these projects are developed to resolve a clear goal or set of goals. The target is often very clear. In terms of clarity, we always ensure that the objective of the project is what? SMART. It is specific, it is measurable, it is attainable or achievable. It is time-bound, we have mentioned it. And then that's the last one, right? Yeah, it should also be very clear. Clarity is very important. It should be logical. The processes we want to should be logical. It should also be very explicit. Okay. All right. Yes, the goals of the project should be realistic. Unrealistic project targets will lead to what? Project runaways. Okay. Then projects should also be what? Customer focused, because we are intending that we want to achieve one specific objective. Now, saying that projects are customer focused can be seen from 2 perspectives. If the project is geared towards achieving a particular objective within the organization, then it means that the project will not be customer focused. Are you getting it? But if we are to deliver a particular service or a particular product to a customer, then it means the project will be what? It will be customer focused. Based on this, we can then define a project as a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. So we may not be delivering a product, we may not be delivering a service, but we may be contributing to something within the organization. That is why the issue of results would come into play. Yes. More characteristics of a project. We're also saying that projects are ad hoc endeavors within a clear life cycle. So for instance, when the School of Business was set up, we needed an ad hoc endeavor to develop our programs. The moment that endeavor is finished, the endeavor ends. But if we are looking at what the organization is set up to do, it is not ad hoc. A university or an organization is set up to deliver a particular product for an unexpected length of time in the future. But if we are engaging in a subcomponent, maybe a project, the project would be ad hoc. The moment we achieve the objectives and deliver the product, deliver the service, or achieve the result, then the project does what? The project would cease. Often, we say that whatever we do within an organization is geared towards achieving the mission, the vision of the organization. So it means that if we are considering projects as temporary, whatever we do within a project will be contributing towards what? The overall vision or mission of the organization. So we may say that projects can be described as building blocks of an organization's strategy. If we're talking about an organization strategy, we are looking at what? The long-term vision, mission of the organization. So whatever project we are going to execute, though temporary, it should be aligned with what? The organization's vision, mission. It should be aligned with what? The organization's what? The organization's what? Strategy. Excellent. Projects are responsible for the newest and most improved products, services, and organizational processes. Why do we think we would constitute or start a new project? Why would an organization consider starting or putting a project together?
Product modification.
If it is good, if it intends to deliver in a new market, a product that it has not engaged in before, then it may constitute a project to be able to do that. Consider NEDCO, for instance. If they realize that power theft is so high in some parts of the country, especially northern Ghana, and they realize that the problem is in the what? In the metering. And they want to install new kinds of meters. Bringing on board a new kinds of meters will be a unique project to deliver a new product or a new service. And I believe over time, we would have noticed that NEDCO or VRA or whatever, they have changed different kinds of meters. And for each particular aspect, they consider it as a separate project. I think, am I right? They consider it as a separate project. So even in areas where they realize that despite the new product or service that is being delivered, there are still loopholes regarding what? Power theft. They will constitute a new project to be able to either maybe a project, a monitoring team, or some kind of a team to be able to deal with it beyond the delivery of the new product. So often, yes.
Another example is when MTN had a project in MTN Yellow Ghana project.
Okay.
They were to rebrand your whole Ghana with stickers and banners of the yellow of MTN.
Okay.
So they named it Yellow Ghana
Project. Yeah, it's possible. There can be. If somebody mentioned the broad nature of project, if the objective of that project is so broad, and to the extent that if you are going to constitute a project team, the project team would be huge. You can break it down into sub-components. Yes.
Well, I'm still on the project.
Okay.
I think in every institution or business or an organization, there are bigger objectives. Maybe let's take production of let's consider the water industry. Then like this. In their operations, that means any activity they carry out achieve giving us quality or getting profit. It's a project.
You understand what he's saying?
At the end of the day,
Anything at all an organization does.
I've tried to say maybe everything they do, every strategy they pick out to achieve delivery quality and maximizing profit should embody projects.
Yeah, it should embody project, but the organization per se may not classify it as a project. I see the difference. Because you see, the problem with projects is that we indicated that they are cross-functional. And the fact that they are cross-functional, sometimes it destabilizes the traditional chain of command. So you are the deputy, and then beneath you, the supervisor. The project is constituted, and they say the supervisor should lead that project. The supervisor may not necessarily report to you again. Are you getting it? That supervisor heading that project may now report to the top. In some organizations, because of the disruptions projects may create, they may not do that. They may just let it follow the normal chain of command. Now, tying to that, if an organization wants to institute change in the organization and they feel that, considering the nature of our organization, change management is very difficult. In the military, for instance, change management, I don't think it's difficult because of the nature of the nature, command and control. You can't really be questioning when you are given an order. But in some other organizations, the command and control is not that strict. So change is often a very difficult thing. In order to handle such a change, the organization may just do what? Constitute a project. Are you getting it? They may just constitute a project. GES does that. So they may just constitute a project just to deal with that change that is coming. So that the moment people finally accept this particular change, the project will have achieved its mission and the project is dissolved or terminated. So projects can be initiated because organizations see it as one kind of a philosophy they can use to manage or introduce change. Assuming you have a boss who is so very strict, very stubborn, and against, organizational politics. Sometimes you have a deputy or you have a manager who is opposed to a lot of the views of the boss. So he will often do a lot of things to make sure the boss fails. If the boss realizes this and the delivery of a new kind of product or service is going to come under this particular gentleman, the manager or the CEO may just decide that, well, let's constitute a project headed by A, B, C, cross-functional, to be able to deal. In that case, the sabotage of that particular project will be what? Will be minimized. But that bigger organizational objective would be. So in some organizations, sometimes, even in politics, when you are going to punish sometimes, they just remove you from the head of, they just remove you from wherever you are and come and say that they have now started some new project at the head office and you are going to lead it. And you come and sit on an empty chair, empty desk. This project starting, project is not starting. Because they want to get you out of the way to be able to manage some kind of change. And we're saying that the opposite holds true. If you also want to manage some kind of change, you may not necessarily remove that person, but you just constitute a team and give the responsibility to that team and just leave him to do the traditional stuff. In that case, you will still be able to achieve. It applies to GES.
Like the culture of change, accepting it is very hard to deal with. So most of the organized short-term projects, seminars, to get them on board to accept something.
Testing things, yeah. Yes. Customer, yes. Customer complaints, customer feedback. It depends on the nature of the complaints. You see, in our part of the world, customer complaints are often treated with a lot of disdain, though the customer is king. If we had a suing culture, when I say suing culture, you are not happy about something straight, you go to court. Customers would have been taken very seriously. So if a particular customer complains about something, and our organization realizes that if we don't deal with this particular complaint, it could escalate. They may set up a project to deal with that particular. So customer complaints can also trigger. And very soon we'll see, if we are looking at the success of a project, the customer is key. Though in time past, traditionally, the customer was not considered as the king. So traditionally, they will just consider the time. If the project is delivered within a specific time, then we'll say the project is successful. If the project is delivered within the budget, then we'll say the project is successful. If the project delivers that product, we are not considering the customer's needs, but we just want to produce a mobile phone. As long as we have been able to produce a mobile phone, whether the customer likes it or not, we will say that the project has delivered. That used to be the thinking, but the thinking has shifted towards the customer's acceptance of what the project is delivering. And we'll look at that in a bit. So project management entails cross-functional and organizational. Okay, we've looked at that. Then traditional management functions of planning, organizing, motivation, directing, and controlling apply to project management as well. Because we're saying that projects are just a subset of what is happening in the bigger organization. Then principal accounts of a project are the satisfaction of customer. We have mentioned customer requirements. Projects are terminated upon successful completion. So based on the benchmarks we have given, if we are able to achieve that, then what? The project should be what? Should be terminated. So let's look at some differences between a process and a project. So based on our explanation so far, if you look at the first one, processes, routine, repetitive. Projects, it will lead to the delivery of a new product or service, and it's gone. Several objectives. So in a process, the process could lead to contributing to several different kinds of objectives because of the cross-functional nature. But if we're looking at a project, when we bring people of different backgrounds together, we want them to work together seamlessly to achieve one specific objective. When that objective is achieved, then the project is abandoned or terminated. Then processes are ongoing. The example of lecturing I indicated, always we'll do this. But projects are one-shot limited life. The moment we are able to develop the programs, submit it, that project, the team is dissolved. So usually in our organizations, instead of using the term project, we may not necessarily do that. They will say they are just setting up a committee to do A, B, C. The moment they deliver, the committee is what? It's dissolved. The people are often homogeneous. The same, just the way we are sitting, going through a process. If I'm going to put a project together, I will pick people from HR, people from accounting, and then put them together. In that case, we'll say that the project will be what? Heterogeneous. So considering whether you are looking at process or project, the issue of homogeneity or heterogeneity will come into play. Remember, we keep using the word cross-functional. Cross-functionality also ties into the issue of what? Heterogeneity, because we are bringing people from different. Then process, whatever is happening in the organization, we are not destabilizing that. Every day it will follow the same process. But when we are dealing with a project, we are looking at integrating or bringing different kinds, bits of other processes together to be able to deliver it. With projects, why do you think we would often have, we may have project overruns, runaway costs, runaway schedule? Why? Because we predicted. So why should it exceed? Because of uncertainty. Huh? So projects are often but because processes are routine, with time, we are able to study the process and know that, look, if we put in this is what we're going to get. So we can't allocate this amount of money for this process. And you say that, well, there will still be that little percentage or margin of what? Margin of error. In processes, the chain of command is often just followed, traditional. But when we're dealing with projects, we say it violates the established practice. It also destabilizes the status quo, what many people are used to. So someone has a favorite, puts a project together and puts the favorite there. The favorite no longer reports to the immediate boss. The status quo has been what? It has been upset. It has been destabilized. So let's look at some basic statistics. Yes.
So yes. Can we change the project, the building that recently collapsed?
Yes.
Can it be a runaway project?
Yeah, it's a big runaway project. Our building that collapsed. Yes.
Sir, runaway project, I thought it's a project that you have achieved, okay, but the time was in the course. But this one, you haven't had anything.
Okay, I like what he's also saying. But the fact that, look, let me take it this way. The fact that at the time of the collapse, the project delivery was on point. So we are measuring it up to that time. It didn't end. If it is that, it ended and it collapsed. This is a completely different matter too. We are not done and the thing collapsed. So we cannot even say that they delivered. They didn't actually deliver. They hadn't even finished. The timeline wasn't achieved yet because the time they were supposed to deliver it this December. So that we would have used it January. But May, the thing collapsed. But in terms of delivery, even at that particular point, though it wasn't complete, even at that particular point, there is some runaway cost. This is on record, right? So let me be careful about what I say about this. Assuming the cost was inflated because of the issue of corruption, the issue of, oiling some people's hand to make sure that it goes faster, a lot of things, public sector. Yeah. Even if the project is delivered, there would have been some runaway cost there. Are you getting? So sometimes runaway costs may appear not necessarily because the project is not delivered. The project may be delivered, but some other aspects of the project may have the issues of runaways. So you can deliver the product, but the cost you incur in delivering it is more than the budgeted cost. Are you getting?
It's like respect we mentioned about when the project is the time schedule or
cost. Yeah.
That's what it's like.
Yeah. Right.
With seniors, like when you are set aside some funds as we seniors, and and the post it finishes that one.
Yeah.
Can it be considered as a runaway?
You set some contingency cost, and then the project finish the main cost and also finish the contingent.
Can you consider the cost?
The fact that
I don't think it's runaway.
the contingency is there to deal with the issues of uncertainty. So that won't be run out. It won't be run out. Yes, but you see, in our context, consider the nature of our context. The moment we know that there's contingency, the cost will not meet.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think that's what you don't even say it.
I went to TTF Montreal with one of my senior colleagues, and the community were supposed to visit were many, and the cost they give you, the budget they give you to do the monitoring in this community, you can't do it. So we visited some few communities. I just hope that the top management will not be listening to us. We visited some communities, and then my colleague was making a joke. So this is not actually reality, please. It's a joke. So he was saying that, oh, we could possibly just visit 1, 2, 3 communities instead of the 17 and come back. And I was like, so how do we retire? How do we retire? And then he said that, oh, as for my driver, even people from other places come and hire him to do retirement. It's just a group. So even considering the costs, if we are to execute it, the issue of runaway cost is a necessity, because they have probably under budget. Yes. Then, yes.
The component of process and projects.
Sure. Yeah, somebody indicated. So even within the project, we can have a sub. Yes. So, and you see the way, so let's just put it this way, bluntly. Projects encompasses what? Some processes. You understand?
For example, when the new business projects, we had another project that we call injection of performance projects.
Within the metering project, you see.
What's the experience?
Yeah, so let's look at some basic statistics and move on. Over half of all IT projects become runaways. This is just some. They become runaways. Basically, they are saying that either the cost, labor, something will exceed. It's worse in developing countries because people see it as an opportunity for what? For corruption. Yes.
The website project for
SNIT. It was SNIT. 80,000, yes. $80,000. Yes. And if you, those who can remember that news story, many of us rushed to the website to see what was there. And you'll be shocked at what they provide. $80,000. Only 30% of technology-based projects and programs are a success. So when we say a project is a success, what do we mean? And we'll look at it in a bit. The 10 major government contracts have over 16 billion in cost overruns and are combined 38 years behind schedule. These are statistics from the US. 1 out of 6 IT projects has an average cost overrun of 200%. It's even more in the developing country context. And this one, I'm not fingering IT project managers, but come to think of it, the project is going to be executed, an IT project is going to be executed. It can be done in-house, the manpower is there. The IT project manager comes forward and says, no, let's outsource it. He has connived with someone to bid, and then the person wins. Yeah, it will result into an overrun. Okay, yeah, I like that. Yeah.
If you want the latest version,
yeah, you should be prepared to pay. Yeah.
Budgeted for the current version. New version.
Yeah. I think I like that part. IT projects are expensive. Sometimes, even during the delivery, considering the duration of the contract, even during the delivery, there may be updates that were not factored in the design of the project, which you may, when you are about to roll out or go live, you may have to factor in to ensure that it is Yes, continuous support. Yeah. Okay. So why are projects important? Why do you think projects are important? Let's look at some. Let's look at anybody here with an iPhone. We're going to use technology to be able to explain this. Shorten product life cycles. Increasingly, the life cycle of new products is measured in terms of months or even weeks rather than years. Look at the way iPhones are. So consider the iPhone production as a project within Apple. Sometimes some of us are struggling to even start using iPhones and they are moving to 15. Yeah. So you buy one before you realize, is it mostly up to a year?
It's a year.
A year. Then another one comes. Yeah. Yeah. Shorten product. So that is why. So even within organizations in our context, what we roll out. So look at universities these days. Let me use the educational sector. Universities these days and the number of programs, new programs they are rolling out. Have you seen what Tamar Protect, the programs they are rolling out?
Yes.
I'm not going to mention that. So because of the fastness with which we are rolling out products and new services, project management is very, very important. Because if it is a new innovative project, you shouldn't subject the delivery or the rollout of this particular new service or product to the traditional routine processes and laid-back approaches within your organization. So the hope is that if you set up a project, maybe there will be some renewed enthusiasm. Because of the cross-functional nature, you are able to draw different expertise from different corners of the organization to be able to, yes.
When the advert was sent on the UGS running MIs,
You were like,
so everybody who attended UGS so way back would be like, oh, the UGS will run.
yeah, can they really run this project? Okay.
MIs.
Yeah.
That program was,
Yeah.
It was questionable if UGS can even make it possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
When look at the programs that I produced.
Yeah, and I like the part he's raising. You see, MIS, UDS, Tamale is non-existent. That it has never happened. And those who attended Nigerian, those who were with us in WA will realize that the only time you will come across MIS would be me in level 300.
We were the only one person who were just pictured.
And I was the only one recruited to teach that course. So they sent me to WA. Then later, here, let me forget about what happened over there. When we were going to do the accreditation, they brought somebody from Tamale Technical University to be part of their assessors. I think last week I mentioned it here. So when he came, they did everything. And he said, he's surprised. He didn't know that there's even somebody with like top background in MIS or something. And he came here and saw that there's even a professor. A couple of weeks ago, he called me and we're having a similar discussion. And I said, yes, you just haven't looked deeper. Because we publish, we do a lot of things, you would have, at least you would have. So that question, I also expected that, but we saw it as what? A project. And to make sure that people notice it, you would have seen the number of things we have done. Yes. And sometimes when I mention to people that the MIS class, they are 19, people are shocked. First time, 19. I just hope that this project there won't be any over. Okay. All right. So narrow product or launch windows. Yeah. Narrow product. Did you realize how we were rushing to start the program? Yeah. So when you are engaged in a project with limited time, you can't miss your product launch. Yeah. If you are going to if we are going to follow the normal UDS calendar, you know when this program will have started? Can anybody guess? Next month. January. And do you know what would have happened? Many of you may have applied to either UBS, KNUST, or yes. Yeah. So when you are dealing with a project, you have to consider them. Very, very important, because we are doing it in competition with what? With others. So the launch times are very important. Projects are increasingly becoming complex and technical. And that is why things are increasingly, the delivery of new products, new services are increasingly becoming technical, very sophisticated. And we human beings, we the consumers, we have become very, very sophisticated. Yeah, for us to be able to be able to deliver innovative products, there's a need for us to be able to what? Link up with other business partners, not necessarily in our comfort zones, but others. How can you do that and do it very well? If you put a project together, the project would help in doing it better than the traditional way of doing things. Now look at the way inflation is affecting almost everything in the country. And you want to roll out a project, and you just follow the normal processes within the organization. By the time you roll out the project, you can imagine the cost. So it would be better to have put a project team together to deal with it, because project teams are specific, directed, short-term. They'll be able to come up with a product or service so that inflation, changes in prices, changes in the market environment will not affect it. Very, very much. So I want to start a project. How do I start? And when I say project, don't think about project in a very, very abstract term. Even if I'm going to write my project, my thesis or dissertation, I can consider it as a project. How do I start? What are the stages? So, and let me go back to my first example. If you look at the delivery of this lecture, we say it is a process. If you look at the development of the program, we'll consider it as what? A project. The lectures, we'll continue to be having lectures. When you guys graduate, go into employment, get promoted, we'll still be doing that. But we may bring on new projects. As for that development of the MIS, that one is started, it has ended because it was what? Short-term specific. Are you getting it? It was short-term and specific. So for projects, we'll have the period of start, the initiation, and the period of what? Delivery and ending. So let's look at some specific project life cycles. When we say project life cycle, what do we mean? Stages in the project development. Basically, that's what we refer to as the project life cycle. 4 distinct stages. Period of conceptualization. If it is a thesis project, your period of conceptualization would be, what area should I write about? What topic should I have?
So that's the idea generation.
Exactly. That's what we were talking about last. So technically, we will now say conceptualization. How did you conceptualize your project, your thesis, your topic? How? Idea generation. Before you now move to planning. This is where you will try to figure out the technical or functional requirements. Technical, functional requirements. This is also where you will now sit down and draw the schema of your project. Do a lot of diagrams to see how your project is related to other battery. Then we have the execution. This is where you get your hands dirty to deliver the product or what? Or service. When the product or service has been delivered, so you see that the moment you are able to deliver, the project is what? Is terminated. The project is disbanded. No hope. Yes. Okay. Okay. The TV is also on, so it's fine. It will come. It will come. Yeah, he's back. It's okay. It's okay.
Okay,
Yeah?
someone is charging it.
If the phone is off, it's better than when the phone is off. Okay, so let's move on. So how many stages are we looking at? Conceptualization, planning, execution, and termination. Okay, conceptualization involves development of the initial goal, technical specifications of the project, key stakeholders, who and who should be identified and who should be assigned. And then planning, all detailed specifications, schedules, schematics, and plans will be developed at this stage. Then the execution, this is where the actual work of the project is performed. The project is transferred to the customer. If it's a product or service, then the resources are reassigned. Sometimes at the end of project closure, if some assets were required, the assets may either be disposed of or donated or directed to reassigned to other project, and then we'll have the project close out. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so we can look at the phases in terms of this graph. And if you look at it, if you map it against the stages against the number of man hours required, at the conceptualization stage, you really don't need a lot of hands. Who could likely be doing the conceptualization? Top management. So, and there are just a few. That's why the man hours there are not. Then as we go towards to execution, that is where a lot of hands are required to make sure that the actual work is conducted. Then delivery. The project is being delivered to the customer. We are going downhill, and then we terminate it. Yeah. Now I want us to look at what will make a project a success. And I want us to use this diagram. Some of these we have mentioned. What will make a project, I should have asked a question. What will make a project a success?
The project can be made success when it has both the conceptualization and the planning, execution, and termination in its right proportion.
Okay, he's saying in its right proportion. Your answer is so bulky. In its right proportions. So it means in terms of man hours, right proportion. In terms of cost, right proportion. In terms of performance, that is the delivery of the product or service, the customer should be happy. Even within, let's forget about the customer for now. Even within, we should be happy about what our project has delivered. Then the last part, the customer should be what? The customer is king. So looking at this diagram, time is very important. The schedule. How long is the project scheduled to be delivered within? How long? Within what time frame? If we are able to deliver it within that time frame, then we can see that the project is what? A success. If it is delivered within budget, within the cost constraints we were given, no problem, no cost overruns. Performance, we have delivered it per. Now, traditionally, this budget, cost, time, and performance were seen as the three main metrics to measure a project's success. And those three components are what we refer to as the triple constraint. Budget, time, and performance used to be the only contributors to what? Only determinants of a project's success. The triple constraints. Over time, it has been realized that no, they are not the only constraints to determining the success of a project. If all these are internal, we are satisfied with what we have done. So we start clapping for ourselves. Within the time frame, 3 months, we're happy. Budget, we're happy. Then we advertise and nobody applies. Client acceptance, or people apply and they apply. We give them admission and they don't accept. They don't pay. So at some point, yes.
The case of my students.
Okay. Yeah.
So with the continuing change of the case of the client, if the initial assessment realized, I Can you say it's not a success? Because the taste of the client has changed.
Okay. You know, a lot of these things are done with contractual terms. So you have agreed with an organization to deliver ABC project. When we are done, your text cannot change because of the terms of the. So it will be a success because the terms your test may change, but when we are delivering, you cannot say that you won't. Are you getting it? So that is why it is clear. It is explicitly stated here that client acceptance. You cannot reject. You don't actually. It's not a product you would need anymore because of the change in what in taste.
You know, maybe I'm going to
Okay.
the plan has been, they have designed the building, everything out. But when they are building, okay, I would like a door rather to be here.
Okay.
I would like it, and most of the time
It happens. Yes.
The client.
Mm.
So maybe I said, okay, I need a door here, but still, you see that was the building. And that was
So project disruptions are allowable. So even within the project, the client realizes that, let's take it this way. You see client acceptance. For us to achieve 100% client acceptance, what you are talking about, you realize, I no longer need the door here. Communication with the is very important. So that it means that the technical specifications will need to change. It will come with cost implications.
So what you say, there's two different. So for example, the building, they are constructed. Then the client, no, I don't want to go to here. Now they can easily move. But when they finish everything, they come and say, no, if you move the door from here, bring it. That one means that's the new project.
Yeah, but what I'm also saying is that even when those changes are going to take place, it comes with cost.
Yes,
Exactly. It will affect the time, it will affect the budget. And the customer, the cost would also be affected.
Yes. The thing is, even during the project, the project is not even complete. The execution project is still, even still, cost per se come up.
Hey.
It will come back.
They are saying no.
We can't still consider it as success because the project.
Hello, can you hear us? They've written no sound, no sound, no sound. Oh. Salu Ibrahim, can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Hey, somebody should try and see if you can hear.
I can hear you, sir.
Okay, then it may be from
You should just put it on the WhatsApp. We can easily
in the chat here. So. Okay.
During the process of this our program.
Yes.
Brother of mine said at the initial he was applying for the
MSc program.
But later on, he was so tight that he even was opting that they shouldn't put him in the weekends.
Yeah.
And then considering the cost.
The cost will change. Go from 10,000 to 20 something. Yeah. But in the end, the customer will accept it.
Yes, from what you are saying.
Yeah.
Those our colleagues who choose engineering. And some got to realize that there's an MSc which is 1 year one. And the cost is also less than half of the MBA. Then he decided that now I don't want this one. I want the MSc. That I'll just use some short while and pay less information. Another person doing MSc also realized that I can only have enough time every weekend, at the weekend. The weekdays I can't work. So I don't want the MSc. I want the MD, which is another cost which will the cost will change, and the time frame of the project will also.
And then he's happy to accept the
So project modification comes in.
No, so his question is, would that also classify as success?
Okay, just as
And also, when
just as Prof said, looking at the time, if really you didn't exceed the allocated time for the project, it's still within schedule.
Yes.
But it is when it exceeds down that you now add the modification, then it has overrun. Then that run away, it becomes a runaway. But if it is within, you were to do MSc 1 year, and you have just started first trimester, and you have modified to 2 years MBE, it doesn't affect like.
And I think most products, when developing it, the customer's feedback, even the development's speed, the customer's feedback is always.
Yes. And then like the initial design, itself, the client, the consultants, and everybody see that they agree and this is the authority. And once you were built, later they come and say, okay, this place, how it is, we don't like, we want to do this. We don't like, we want to add this.
Yeah, so you have to look at it from the. So you have to look at it in the context of project agility. Sometimes between the organization and the customer, there can be agreements that whilst the project is going on, we can make modifications, but the modifications come at what? A cost. Are you getting it? The modification, so it can be embedded as part of the contract terms that, look, you can always ask for modifications up to this point, and we are ready to factor in your modifications, but we'll cost it and change the budget again. In that case, in the end, if the project budget exceeds the original budget, it won't be considered as an overrun because there are modifications which are accepted by. But where we have a fixed budget, fixed product, and then we get to a point, the contract doesn't make room, it hasn't made any room for any changes. And you say, but I don't like this. Meanwhile, the contract hasn't made room for that. If we deliver the project, you would have no obligation. You can't say you won't accept. That's one. You would have to accept it. But if we make the modifications would be what? It will be an overrun because the contract didn't actually say that you can exceed. It gave a fixed price. You know, government contracts happen. A lot of that happen, especially with international partners. They send the money fixed. They should do A, B, C. And for our corrupt politicians, they will make sure that they will exceed. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at the two terms. We are looking at how many factors? 3 factors as opposed to what? 4. When they were 3, it used to be called the triple constraints. Adding the client's acceptance as a key component, we have what we call the new quadruple constraint. That determines a project's what? A project's success. Now let's look at project maturity model. So assuming you have so many projects that needs to be delivered within our organizations, maybe 10-year, 5-year, or 7-year history, the organization may have occasioned or commissioned several different kinds of projects, and they will have learned a lot from them. So they can have some practices that are standardized. If we are going to launch a project A, B, C, there are some standard procedures that must be what? That must be executed, or that must be followed. So when we say project management maturity model, they are used to allow organizations to benchmark best practices of successful project management firms. But we're saying that this benchmarking can be done even within the organization against other past projects or what? Existing projects. Anybody who has heard this term before? PMM, or sometimes PMMM, MQ, Project Management Maturity Model. Then when we say benchmarking, I've used this term a number of times. We are basically referring to the practice of systematically managing the process improvement of project delivery by a single organization of a period of time. When we say project management maturity model, the easiest way or the simplest way to explain it is to use the last one. It illustrates how a company's project management process evolves from conceptualization, initiation to the last stage. We're saying that throughout that process, you would have learned a lot. So just as a company changes, as it expands, the project management style must what? Must also change. It will mature because they will learn from what they have been doing. There are different project management maturity models, so many hundreds of them out there. But the generic model is this. This is a generic model for a project management maturity model. So when we start a new project, maybe project which is initiated by maybe customer complaint. For instance, this is our project which collapse, an emergency, an incident has happened and you are starting a project. We often say there's low maturity. All the project team members, all the project stakeholders, they will not be speaking the same language because of some maybe inconsistencies in terms of their understanding of what the project involves. So lack of understanding between project team members, no common language, processes are ad hoc, and the support from other stakeholders may not be very huge, so little support. But as time goes on, the management of the project would be maturing, small, because we'll be learning from things day by day. The learning process happens in several ways. Either we are learning within the organization what we are doing. If we did something yesterday and we're doing something else the following day, we may learn from what we did the previous day. We may also learn from other projects that are within that organization or outside of that organization. So we may move from a level of low maturity to a level of what? Moderate maturity, where our practices are being defined. And here, where we have ad hoc processes, no common language, and little support, we can build our team up by sending them for some training, going to look at other projects. Our UCM, it happened. They have gone to KNUST, UCC, just to understand how their student management system. And then they come back to see how they can perfect our system by making sure that they now have defined practices, train staff on how to use and then the organization can also, understanding that there is no common language, there's little support, the organization can pump more money, more resources into the project. If they do that, then we say that the project is at least maturing. That is the level of moderate maturity. Then the last one is the period of high maturity, where a lot of the practices are institutionalized. But the fact that the processes are institutionalized doesn't mean that there will be no learning. The project will continuously seek what? Continuous improvement. There are so many of them. So we'll just look at some briefly and you can read about them. For instance, examples of maturity models are the Center of Business Practices model. So an organization can, after a long period of executing projects, come up with their standard. So we can have a UDS PMM, Project Management Maturity Model. So that if any project is going to be executed within our organization, within UDS, this particular, we can refer to that one. So if you are appointed as a project manager, you can learn by putting up by benchmarking what you are doing against other PMM models within the organization or outside of the organization. So many of them. For instance, the first one, the Center for Business Practices model, they have a number of levels or stages, which can be considered in line with the generic model. The Center for Business Practices PMM model has 5 stages: the initial phase, the structure, processes, and standards, then institutionalized project management. But if you look at the generic model, we're saying that at what stage are the practices institutionalized? The last stage. But this particular model is saying that initial phase, structure, they will have determined the structure, the processes, and the standards. Then institutionalized project management. They will institutionalize all the practices. Then some management will also be going on before they reach the level of optimization, high level of maturity. So instead of 3 generic levels, they have 5 levels. So if I'm appointed as a project manager, I can look at different kinds of PMM models. And instead of using a 3-stage model, I can come up with different kinds of steps, maybe 6, maybe 4, maybe 5, depending on the nature of projects that are executed by the organization. It is usually different because you see some organizations may be commissioning a project that is geared towards the delivery of a service. Others may be geared towards the delivery of what? A tangible product. So the PMM models that we use may be what? Maybe different. Okay. Any question? Anybody who has seen this thing before? Have you seen a Gantt chart before? Gantt chart, G-A-N-T-T. It's a typical example of a Gantt chart. You can easily do this using Microsoft Project Professional. And we'll see how we'll be able to use it later in this course. So usually in managing a project, as a project manager, you must keep record of everything. Who is assigned, the members of your team, especially the task, and understanding that one particular task feed into another task, so that you can assign your roles properly. So usually with a Gantt chart, we would have at the extreme left the task. Sometimes after the task, we will have the rules, we will identify rules. And then at the other side, we would have the calendar. So usually at the top here, we would have maybe calendar in terms of months, calendar in terms of weeks, calendar in terms of what? Years. So the duration will be indicated there. So that given all the tasks that are here, each task will be assigned a specific timeline. And if you look at carefully, you would see that you will see some arrows are dropping from some bars onto the other. It means that this task executed within a specific time will lead to the execution of this particular task. So later on, when we are using the software, we'll be able to map one task onto the other. If you are able to do this, then you print it. So the roles will be assigned, the delivery timelines of the task will also be there. And you print it nicely and put it in your project management office. Everybody will be able to tell what project you are currently delivering at any point in time and who is responsible for that particular project. If you have worked, yes.
Like the MBA, you still use the MBA course for example. At the end of the day, our first graduation, let's take it from the idea generation or conceptualization to the first graduating is your project.
Yeah.
And we will put the first advertisement session. Session.
So we can use something like that as our working example, and then we list all the tasks we are supposed to do, and then put. I tried downloading it. Microsoft Project. They don't have a Mac version. Have you got? Yeah. Can they get copies from you? Do you use it at work? Do you use it at work?
No.
Ah, okay. I thought you would have given us a practical demonstration at work. Projects. Yeah. You can get a cracked version. Yes. You can get the cracked version. So when we're going to demonstrate, we'll probably use your PC because mine will not use the. Unless.
It comes with a
Yeah. It comes at a different cost.
Well, can there be a situation where the processes leading to maybe UPS in the project rolling out this the School of Business program? Could there be a situation where maybe UPS has a standard for them management standard, institutionalize a particular process? It should be done this way, done that way. But the School of Business, you as a team, you think that step possibly you could do
This way.
But the institution permit you to.
Yeah, I get what you are saying, but in response to that, we don't have an written institutionalized project management practices. Written, institutionalized, but there are unwritten institutionalized practices. So when we started, we didn't rely on the written institutionalized practices. And I'll give you an example of that. If you develop a program, you would have to take it to your school. The school has a board, and they will approve it. And you now bring it into this room. The graduate school dean will sit where you are sitting. Then all other graduate deans and their graduate program coordinator will come. And then you sit here and defend it. When you have done that, just look at the process. When you have done that, then they will constitute a committee to look at your document again after you have presented it, and they will give you feedback to how to correct it and perfect it. You do the correction, then you take it to the quality assurance. They will make sure everything is fine. It follows GTEC standards, and then you send it to GTEC. So for each individual program, you have to do that. Consider the number of MBA programs we are at 9. So it means that we're supposed to do it 9 times. That's the unwritten, institutionalized practice. So when we submitted our program, they said we should come and defend. So when we came, I told me and my vice dean, we agreed that, okay, Prof, you present MBA. No, I will present MBA and you present MSc. And MBA, they are 9. MSc, they are 5. So whole full house, they were thinking, okay, we'll be here the whole day. Then when they gave me the floor, 25 minutes to 30 minutes, I presented the 9 programs. Then I said, okay, next, my vice dean will present. 25 to 30 minutes, he presented the 5 programs. And we said, we are done. Any question? And they said they should ask us questions. They ask our questions. Within an hour to an hour and a half, we had presented 14 programs, and it was approved. So when we came out, you people, how come how did you think of, are you getting it? So the institutionalized practice, the unwritten institutional practice is there. But we also felt that if we were going to do that, remember our project is was time bound. We will not be able to finish. We will not be able to do that. So we did what? We just crashed it together. I get it. So at our level, we have our PMM model that when we are going to do the ABC, we lump it. Whether that is what you have been doing or not, we are saying that that is how we are going to do it. That is how we are going to execute our project. But if it was written, it would have been difficult for us to change it. So our advantage was that it was an unwritten, institutionalized practice to be able to deliver that kind of project. I don't know if I answered your question. So it depends on the nature of the organization. After we have done that, a lot are learning from what we have done. Yeah. And everybody is changing because it is unwritten. Yes. So though we are influencing institutionalized practices in terms of these projects. So if they decide at that level here, the graduate school or whatever, if they now decided they want to institutionalize it and make it written, then they can do that. But after that, no one can come and say that we now want to change, we now want to do. They will tell you that look at the handbook. The regulation says A, B, C. So sometimes we look at the dynamics to see the ones that are written and unwritten and which ones we can easily change. Anybody here considering a career in project management? It may come. You may not necessarily be considering it.
Prof.
Yes.
On your question, I was just going to say something like that. It's like project management for now is good for everybody.
Yes.
You might be selected to lead
the project.
Execute a particular project. Yes. In your wherever you are. Yeah. Wherever you might not necessarily be a manager or a head of a particular unit, but we can just based on your knowledge of project management.
So what skills will you need? What skills will you need? If you can't communicate, you can't lead. That one. If you can't communicate, you are temperamental, you can't lead. So communication is key. Communication also relates to you telling your team members or letting your team members know what their roles and responsibilities are clearly defined. Assuming being part of a team without a description of what your role is. The members will say, Zangar number, you are just there. Well, the way I am explaining is effective communication. Effective communication, yes. You must be a critical thinker. That one, the project manager must have a lot of soft skills. Assuming a project manager in this day and age, who when he holds a mouse, he's scared that if he clicks, he will break them up. I mean, people like that, yes.
When his laptop is not there, he thinks that he can't do it.
Yeah.
So that critical thinking is very important. You should be able to think.
And that's wrong. Your phone must
Think on your feet. There's a problem. Think on your feet. How you are going to it. You won't find all the answers in books. So as a project manager, you should be able to what? Think on your feet. You can't do it alone. So collaboration is what? It's key. So how do you make sure the stakeholders are able to collaborate with you very well? The first one ties into that. If you can communicate well, right, somebody will complain about something and you shout and you break down the morale in the team. Yeah. Yeah. Knowledge application and analysis. You may know something, but you may not be able to apply it. It happens to a lot of people. Exams, you write, top, but they put him in the role. He's not able to apply the theory to what? To practice. It's often very difficult for a lot of people. And sometimes, for some, that skills comes naturally. Others, you have to consciously train your brain. So anytime you're going to take a decision, you just try to think intellectually a bit to see whether, well, this day and age, it has been made easy by what? Yes, you can ask a lot of questions. How do I do this? How do I do this? And you'll be able to relate. Business ethics and social responsibility. Yeah. Ethics. You can't shout at everybody. You can't befriend everybody. And there's this quote I have been seeing. When you go to your workplace, you go do your job and do what? And go home. So the relationships you foster within the team, there should be what? Limits and barriers to it. Otherwise, a lot of things can easily get mixed up. Yeah. You can easily as a leader of a team, you can easily compromise it. For instance, office romance can easily compromise a team. And you as a boss, you just lose your focus. Because that pretty girl in the team no longer shall be deflated. You'll be deflated, yeah, easily. So ethics, very important. In this day and age, you are a project manager and your IT skills, you are in serious trouble. Social responsibility. I think it's tied into the issue of what? The ethics and morality. It's tied into that. Assuming as a head, basic IT skills. And look, my colleagues sometimes will tell me that, hey, is this my background that's helping me? Not necessarily. When you do information, a lot of you will come to see, when you do information, a lot of the things you will be using outside, you won't learn it in this class. They're soft skills. You have to make that conscious effort to learn because when you are done with this program, in your office, in your team, if there's a problem, IT problem, they will say, but you have MBA, come and do it. You can't tell them you didn't learn that. And I used to face that problem a lot in those days. We are in a room, printer cannot work, projector cannot work. They say, where is dog? And I used to tell them, these things are not really. It's not working. You have to just take it up. Did you realize last week they called Muda to come and check them like this? And he came and he was standing. You didn't notice that?
Yes.
Yeah, and I said, Muda, go. And he was laughing. Yeah, that is a misconception. Because of your background, people would say, ascribe a lot of things. Yeah, so, but at least the basic soft skills, you must have it. You must have it to be able to lead. How to manipulate data, a lot of things you should know it. If you are not in the know, you'll easily be. Yes. I remember when I was doing my PhD, my supervisors, if you are going to do a presentation, your slice alone, before you even start, they'll just say, just scroll through your slice and let's see. And they'll be sitting like this. The moment they start shaking their head, you know you are in trouble. You say, what is that? What kind of slice is that? They want your slides to even speak to them. Even so, sometimes you roll the slide before you start speaking. People know what you want to communicate. There's one of my colleagues here who usually would tease me if I'm going to do a presentation. He'll say that, hey, so you do the slides and the people will just stop listening to him. They'll be admiring the slides. The slides should be, yeah. So all those soft skills are very, very important, especially for us in this field. Yeah, data literacy I mentioned, very, very important. Any question?
In modern in Africa, is the ability to increase because of your skills.
Yeah. Eh? Is what? Say it again.
The ability to because of your experience.
Uh-huh.
Part of the
No. Bootlicking. He means bootlicking. No. You see, if you are a bootlicker, if you are a project manager and you are a bootlicker, the tendency of your project being delayed is high. You know why? The top. Look, just look at this project manager responsibility. Look at the first one, selecting a team. Because you are a bootlicker, you bootlick your way to it, and they say some lazy ass should be part of your team. You are serious, you are feeling like that.
Not exactly like the key.
But that's what it means.
Like sometimes
Kissing ass is bootlicking.
cozy up to like the big maybe the government official or sometimes you know
No,
What is this?
I think that example is I think that example is when he was now he will have if you do the selection. He cannot do the work on his own. I don't know so that's
you are going for contact.
Mhm.
That's for you. You are not going to please anybody's mouth for the rest. In Ghana.
No, not in Ghana. In the
But how does that relate to? Is that a project?
That's not
Okay.
like knowing who to really approach, who to
Yeah, interpersonal skills.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very important.
sometimes yes, so
Yeah.
give them some accolades.
Yeah,
That's no be
Yeah.
or
It's not.
yeah, it's part gerrymandering. The Americans say gerrymandering.
but
Yes.
in certain jurisdictions they are qualified certified lawyers
Yeah,
accountancy projects.
but you pay your way. If you are going to use professional lobbyists, you will pay.
Yeah, I want to
Yeah,
now have a question on your ability to execute. Maybe you have the ability, but
You just
you
want
have
to.
to compete. I think it's also part of
it's in Ghana here that
it should be a characteristic, your ability to even end the project.
it's in Ghana that we call it right, but the Chinese it's normal to them. They call it lobby. You pay
And there are even people, even in America, there are people who are called lobbyists.
Yes.
That's just their job.
You are
So
good
you
at
need
it.
that big contract, you go and see them. And they will do all the lobbying for you and charge you. They are lobbyists.
I
Yeah.
think
Sometimes they even call
bootlicking is
some
part
of them strategists.
It's a skill. It's a skill as
Yeah.
a project.
Meanwhile, all what they are doing is facilitating bribe taking. Yeah, so let's see some project manager responsibilities. If you are a project manager, your main responsibility will be to put your team together. As a project manager. Huh? How do you put your team together? So you see a new government comes, a new person is appointed head, and he's just all over the place, sacking people. Sometimes you need to disrupt the status quo to be able to constitute a team that you can work with. And then in political balance, they will just say, step aside. They will ask you to
so go on leave.
Leave.
Proceed on leave.
You should proceed. Yeah, that you have not taken your leave for a very
Yeah,
long time.
so proceed on leave.
So proceed on leave. Basically, that's what, because the person wants to constitute a team that he or she can work with. Not necessarily control, can work with. Selecting a team that you can work with. Sometimes you select a team halfway or even just by the start of the project, you realize that you have made a mistake in the constitution of your team. You will start making steps. That is why in political parlance, they have what? Reshuffle. Yeah, you cannot always have a perfect team from the beginning to the end. Politically, we all have seen the disaster having a team for 8 years can cause. Yeah. You would also have the responsibility to develop your project objectives and plan for execution. Your project would have a goal, because we initially indicated that the projects are building blocks to what? Achieving an organization's strategy or mission. So you will now have to come and sit down and make sure that with this big objective you need to achieve, what are the small things you will do so that the build up to achieving those will lead to what? Achieving the project. So that's why when you have constituted your team, you would assign roles and tasks to what? Individual members of the team. Risk management activity is very, very important. You will conduct risk assessment in terms of what? Members of the team, the leader, the staff, the team members. What kind of risk could be associated with certain team members? They leak your information. They leak whatever is going. If it is a high-profile project that people are not even supposed. Sometimes there are projects like that, especially in the security agencies. There can be a project you don't want anybody to know about. There's no file, nothing. The project members should always be what? Tight-lipped. If you have a member who is a loose talker, yeah. Yeah. So you need project members who are what? Disciplined. So how do you conduct risk assessment to ensure that those you are bringing on board the team are this caliber of people? You check their history. If it's within the organization, you just request for their files. Yeah, you request for their files and go through. When you have done this, cost estimates and budgeting, there may be a bulk figure assigned to the project. But as a project manager, you will now have to sit down to see how you are going to manage your costs and do your estimates, so that it doesn't lead to what? The execution of the project doesn't lead to cost overruns. Yeah. Then you will also schedule your projects, the individual task, how long, which task should come first, because the task will lead to, some tasks will lead to or need to be executed before other tasks. You would have to schedule it in such a way that those tasks that need to be executed earlier come first. And then management of your resources. How are your entire resources going to be? Yes.
The scheduling is not just the timing, right? Like the resources available,
Yeah.
And sometimes weather conditions.
Yeah, resource allocation. Yeah.
Just like if it is IT project, sometimes you might not be the only one to program everything to ahead. You might need another part to be done by
someone else. Yeah.
Somebody can be good in designing like and somebody can be good in coding. So you are looking at the availability of the other person who is also supporting in that regard. So and that availability will also have to do with time. So if you don't consider all these things so that you can do the scheduling and you just say, oh, it will take this, it will take that. When it got to that stage, the fellow is not having enough time to execute.
Yeah. So the assumption is that if you hold a project management qualification, you can do all. That's the assumption. And the assumption we are also going to have is that at the end of the course, we should have the ability to be able to successfully manage a project. So even when you are taken as a project manager, the assumption is that you are familiar with projects. So your language would have to change to reflect your knowledge of projects. Yeah. So sometimes if they call you for an interview for a project manager role, you have to throw in the jargons. Yeah, for them to appreciate that this guy knows what he's talking about. So just a recap. How many are we? I would just want to go around to make it more interactive, to find out. Just mention one thing from the last 90 minutes, we have been having this discussion. What is the takeaway for you? What new thing have you picked? So it can be random, not in any particular, but everybody will see something he has picked up. Even the last man who just came will say something he has picked up. Yes. Yes. Project overrun. What is that? What does it mean? How different is that from ran away? That, okay.
That's what we like.
That,
The other name.
that's the other name. Okay. Any other? Yes.
Project termination.
Okay.
Because if you just hear the word termination, it's as if abrogated the contract. So I've come to realize that when you say project termination, that means that you are winding up.
Yeah.
Each office will have to give an update of where they have been able to.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, there will be a team to consolidate all these reports and submit it to panel.
I like your explanation of the termination. Open. Okay.
It can also call deliverable when project is
Successfully.
Yeah, delivered. Yeah, you can yeah.
The
So project termination doesn't, it's not only negative. Yeah, when you have achieved all your deliverables, the project can be what? Positively terminated. It can be terminated. Yes.
Before this project, before this engagement, this lecture, I remember termination would have been considered as truncation.
Yeah.
I am when termination.
Yeah, the project has ended. So the project has, yes. Any other? Yeah, termination. The curve, the curve, yeah.
First from it means that
The man hours
the
Labor
labor
required, yes.
starts with management,
Yes.
which are often few.
Mhm.
The numbers
Yeah,
are
yeah.
there, and then it rises.
It rises. So which period, which phase of the project life cycle is the man hours highest?
That's the
Yeah, the project execution. Yes. Any other?
Success of the project. Realize that the customer essential now. First, when time, you have to consider the customer, the acceptance of the customer.
Yeah. So as a project management expert, what are the two dichotomies in terms of traditionally the factors we consider as measures of project success, as opposed to the current inclusion of the acceptance? The triple constraint, and the quadruple. We are saying that.
The customer acceptance, I have to know with it.
Okay.
Because I remember there was a project that I was on, and in a different company, we had to pay the customer and to accept. We have to bribe the customer to accept it.
Why?
So, I don't know. They say there can be before the team accept the project, that is the you have to please them. We pay them a lot of money. And finally they accepted.
So the deliverables, in terms of the deliverables,
Was okay.
everything was perfect.
Yes, but now just accept. Make sure that all the models, every feature that they requested are there. They didn't even check anything.
We thought today we would have been able to deal with culture. So you see that what affected that issue there was the issue of what? Culture.
And what I have processing for those who did the accepting are not the end users. And in this client acceptability, we are looking at those who are going to use it.
No, it depends. No. Imagine it. No. If they were contracted to execute a project,
Okay.
are you getting it? So they are the users. It doesn't necessarily mean that the customer doesn't necessarily mean that final consumer.
Okay.
Are you getting it? If they
So
commission
UCS management has contracted UCM. So at the end of the day, UCM has designed everything and they are reporting to the selected team of managers.
exactly.
Okay.
So they need to bribe the management.
So that they will accept it.
Okay,
So now if later the consumers are having problems, they can log in.
Okay.
Your 10%.
Yes. Any other?
Because I thought it was like clinical trial.
Uh-huh. The PMM.
Yeah, when I just like do we
Please, if you are talking, you talk to us.
okay. I said I have learned on a project management.
The maturity models.
model, where I try to at least is to BIS how we do our activities. And even Prof also brought some example of when they were going to at least bring this project on board, how it happens.
The PMM. Yeah. Yes.
But what originally in case of medical necessity, clinical trial, was your project those you paid? Was it like a trial for them to come on board?
Yeah. So just a minute. Those online. There's a discussion about the triple constraint and the quadruple constraint. And Prosper is saying that he has an issue with the third factor, client acceptance, because they were involved in a project where they had to bribe the client to accept the product. So client acceptance may not necessarily be as seamless as we are talking about. So that's what we are arguing about. But we are saying that the culture probably may have influenced the bribery. Though everything was executed on point, no cost overruns, everything was on point. But still, they insisted that if they have to sign the acceptance contract or whatever, they need to oil their palm. So I think that culture played a critical role in this particular dynamic. But I'm responding to Prosper.
So I see what you're trying to say. See,
yes.
In this case, the client came to do a FAT, factory acceptance test. Yeah, they accepted the product. The first demo. Then they said we should produce it. Now we produce it and brought it. Now the side acceptance test was where they are supposed to document that yes, the product is very everything is okay. But they didn't even check that. Now before they told us before they even accept it, they need to
do something.
So they don't have any problem with the product, whether it's working or not. And we give them the money, we accept it for us.
Interesting.
There was something wrong.
No,
like they got the government contract to build you've done it, but those who come and check.
Yes.
Yeah. I get yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I realize that there is a renovation that happened in the school. When we resume, I realized some gates were created on the lecture rooms. Steps were made.
Yeah, made.
They didn't consider physical challenge.
Okay.
If I'm in charge, if the school is going to take care of those things, you have to pay something. We'll use that same money to make provision for
the disabled. Yeah.
So I want to believe that your project, there must be something that you couldn't perfect.
So he's saying that they did everything perfectly. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
My boss is saying something.
Sometimes there's a discrepancy between the owners of the product being delivered and those accepting the issue, then that can happen. For instance, those who are supposed to be the acceptance were not really the owners of the product. You understand? So they don't care whether the product works or not. They are only out for their
selfish gain.
But if they were the owners, then in this case, they would ensure, even if they're going to take something, they would ensure that everything
Works.
works. They would have ensured that everything works, because at the end of the day, it goes to affect them. If the firm collapses, they don't care. But the owner of the firm really cares. But he's not a technical person or a technocrat to be able to do the acceptance, whether it's.
That is why I still insist that
Yes.
culture. Let me give you an example. See our roots. Our roots. Corruption in China is a grave thing. The Chinese come, they do our roots, and within 6 months after commissioning the road, it's falling apart. Probably because of bribery. It's because our culture promotes that. So even if they and they understand it. So in that particular context, it may have been that the culture promotes that. So even if you had refused to give the bribe, whatever signing they needed to do, they wouldn't have done it. And the law would have been on there. Everything would have supported them. So you would have no option. Culture.
The 10% people get from government contracts.
Mm.
They are worried. Even an international contractor, that 10% comes in invest.
You must do it.
And so at the end of the day, even if you are not able to execute it as Ghanaians we want, the person enjoying the 10%,
He doesn't care, yeah.